Perhaps you, like a lot of folks, find yourself walking on eggshells whenever you're spending extended amounts of time around your family. I know for a lot of people, as I record this, it's the week right after the Thanksgiving holiday in the US. They just had a big chunk of family time, and looking forward to Christmas and New Year, they're going to have another big chunk of family time. And what a lot of people are telling me is that they were struggling with how taxing it is, how much tension there was when they are walking around eggshells with certain family members. Uh, if that's the case for you, I want to talk here a little bit about what may be happening and what you can do to address it so that not only you feel a greater sense of ease around the holidays, but ultimately you and your family can engage in the beautiful work of reconciliation. It really is my belief that God's plan for us is that our families heal and build wealth. And when our families can do that, then our communities will too. So hopefully the ideas that I share with you in this video are in service to your own healing. And that then can ripple out through your family, through your community. So what's going on when we are walking on eggshells? This is a characteristic avoidant strategy. It's something that we do when we are attempting to avoid conflict. Now, this, it's not pathological necessarily. This is a feature that is common in all human systems of every scale. There's a certain degree of this that we're going to see in any couple, in any family unit, in any enterprise or organization. Uh, most of us are going to have some firsthand experience of this. Now, when I say this is a feature of human systems, what I mean is that every human system will develop across time to the extent that it can recognize and integrate differences. Now, in the early stages of group development, we are caught up in stereotypical defensive maneuvers that attempt to create distance from perceived differences. And we'll do this in a couple of key ways. One way that we might engage in this, and you'll hear this in communication once you have ears to hear it. You'll hear people engaged in ambiguous, vague speech. Just kind of talking in generalities, kind of, sort of, it's fine. The colloquialisms, the trite cliches. That's a way that we create a kind of smoke screen in our communication where we may say a lot and communicate very little. That is a characteristic anxious defense. It's an attempt to avoid perceived differences by speaking so vaguely, so ambiguously that you can't really tell what I have said. Therefore, the potential difference can't be discerned. Another characteristic source of noise in our communication is redundancy, where we say the same thing over and over again in different ways. By saying the same thing, I again am blocking any perception of a potential difference. So I repeat the same story over and over again. I rehash the same trite opinions. The challenge of talking about redundancy is I become redundant in speaking about redundancy, so I think you get the idea. Both vagueness and ambiguity and redundancy create a kind of shield or a smoke screen that separate us from perceived differences. The challenge is they also create an obstacle to genuine human relationships or being our authentic selves in relationship. Now, the third main source of noise is contradictory speech. And this characteristic form of it is yeah, but. Now, on the surface, that sounds a bit like an agreement. Someone says something, you say, yeah, but really, this. You can see that there's a bifurcation that occurs. It splits in a way. I smooth over my disagreement, my difference by saying, yeah, and then I just I put the difference in there anyhow. Yeah, but XYZ. So we want to be on the lookout for vagueness, redundancy, and contradiction. These let us know that there is some difference that is difficult for us to tolerate. And when that's the case, we're going to find ourselves becoming more and more anxious. See, the thing is, when these differences are not recognized and integrated in the system, each of these defenses, in injecting noise into the communication, it increases the anxiety within the system. Anxiety well, in a cybernetic sense, anxiety is basically the degree of uncertainty about the system's ability to meet its goals. And when I'm engaging in vague or ambiguous speech, when I'm engaging in redundancy, when I'm engaging in contradictory speech, I am saying a lot, communicating very little, and I'm making it more and more difficult for the group as a whole to meet its goals, or some number of its goals, let's say. The group as a whole may be surviving, but it's not developing and it's not transforming. And these, survival, development, and transformation, these are the goals of a system. Now, I don't want to get too deep in the weeds on this because, as interesting as the theory may be, as many hypotheses as it may give us to test, it doesn't directly help you deal with the walking on eggshells phenomenon. Uh, so if you want to address this, the first thing to do is just keep your ear out for vague, redundant, and contradictory speech, both from others and from yourself. That's going to let you know that there is anxiety in the system, that there is some difference that is too difficult for the system as a whole to tolerate. Now, if you find yourself walking on eggshells, avoiding certain topics of conversation, whatever the case is, worrying, getting nervous or uneasy, you could ask yourself a kind of diagnostic trio of questions. Because there are three and only three causes of anxiety. This worried, nervous, uneasy feeling, it's never random. There is always something that causes it. So these are the questions, and I'll go a little more in depth into each of them as we continue. First question, are you thinking something or telling yourself something that makes you anxious? The second question, are you aware of a sensation or a feeling that you'd rather not have? The third question, are you at the edge of the unknown? These are the only three causes of anxiety in our lives. There are anxiety-provoking thoughts, there are sensations or feelings that we would rather not have, and there is an encounter with the unknown. Now, for what it's worth, I'll say that these first two, anxiety-provoking thoughts and the sensations and feelings we'd rather not have, that kind of anxiety, it's qualitatively different from the normal apprehension we experience at the edge of the unknown. So this walking on eggshells feeling, I'm willing to bet it's not exactly related to the unknown. I'll get to that later. You can ask yourself these three questions. Am I thinking something that makes me nervous? Am I aware of a sensation or feeling that makes me nervous? Is this an encounter with the unknown? From what I've heard from clients just in the past couple of days, this week, after the Thanksgiving holiday, you are almost certainly thinking something that is making you nervous and worried. The thought may be something like, boy, if I say such and such, so and so is going to lose their mind at the dinner table. Boy, someone is going to make a fool out of themselves, or everybody is going to gang up on me, or whatever the case is. That flavor of thought we'll call a negative prediction. And you can tell a negative prediction because it's an idea about the future that says the future is going to go terribly. Now, look, I know if you've watched any number of my videos or read any amount of my content, you've heard me talk about negative predictions before, probably a lot. And the reason I talk about them so much is because you still don't practice this enough. You still subject yourself to anxiety because you don't reality test these negative predictions. When you encounter a negative prediction, an idea about the future that says the future is going to go badly, what you can do is label the thought a negative prediction. You can then ask yourself, in my heart of hearts, do I believe that I can predict the future? And the answer, if you're being honest with yourself, is no. No, you don't genuinely believe you can predict the future. Now, no, I know there is so much evidence from your history that says, well, I think based on this and this and this and this that this is going to happen. That's reasonable, but I'll ask you this. Are you doomed to repeat your history? No, no. However much evidence you have to suggest that this terrible thing may happen in the future, you do not know with total certainty how the future will go. So, that maneuver in and of itself, that reality testing, can deactivate some of the anxiety. It can help you settle in a bit more into the reality of your here and now circumstances rather than getting lost in a constructed reality of there and then. Okay? So, if you are thinking a negative prediction that is creating worry, you can engage in this bit of reality testing. Do I genuinely believe that I can predict the future? The answer is almost certainly no. Now, there is a second species of anxiety-provoking thoughts, and these are attempts at mind reading. This is where you trouble yourself by thinking about what other people are thinking about you. And if you think that they think that you are a piece of crap, or if you think that they think that you are arrogant, you think that they think that you are stupid, you think that they think, you can see how convoluted this gets, right? Hence the anxiety. We're getting lost in a world of our own making. Our own thoughts run wild. Again, the question, if you want to engage in a bit of reality testing and connect with the reality of your here and now experience, the question is, do you, in your heart of hearts, believe that you can read other people's minds? No, probably not. Now, again, I know there may be all sorts of evidence to suggest that yada, yada, yada. Let the past be the past. Let the dead bury the dead. Please just take root in the present. I promise. Reality is always a relief. Even if it's painful, reality is always a relief compared to the endless looping in your own cognitive constructions. Just let yourself have a breather, please. I beg you. So that can account for a tremendous amount of the anxiety that people experience that has them tiptoeing around because I'm thinking to myself, if I say this, it's going to go terribly. Or I'm tiptoeing around because they think that I'm arrogant, or whatever the case is. Do I really believe I can predict the future? Do I really believe I can read other people's minds? No and no. Okay. When I engage in that reality testing, I find that I don't know for sure, which means I find myself in the midst of uncertainty. Now, here's the thing. Everybody everywhere experiences some nervousness when we encounter the unknown. This is normal. This is universal. It's how it goes. We get a little nervous and we get a little edgy when we encounter the unknown. I'm going to encourage you to consider the fact that we cope with or we defend against that kind of nervousness by constructing negative predictions and mind reads. We give ourselves a false sense of certainty about the future and about others as a way to cope with the uncertainty about the future and about others. What this means is we we have a sense of certainty, but it's a miserable one. We make ourselves miserable by attempting to defend against the normal uncertainty that comes from an encounter with the unknown. And there is nothing more unknown than the future or what's going on in another person's head and heart. Uh, there's more to say about that latter part. Well, I'll go ahead and say it. Why not? If you want to know what's really going on for another person, you could ask them. I know that may sound very simple. I guarantee you don't do it to the extent that you could. If you are nervous when you're talking with other people and you realize that you're thinking about what they think about you, you have an opportunity to establish a genuine connection with them. And the way that you do that is by asking them a question about their experience. Now, let's say that as I'm recording this video, I decide that I want to get really worried and anxious and nervous because I think you think that I'm dumb. If I took that thought seriously, it would make me nervous. I don't like being dumb. Who likes being dumb? So, what I could do if I wanted to have a genuine human interaction with you, if I wanted to bring my authentic self to the interaction, I might say, hey, you, as you watch this video, this may sound strange, but I'm a little nervous right now. I, I notice that I've got this thought that you think I'm dumb. Is that true? You will be amazed at what that question can do for a relationship. When we test out our ideas about other people against the actuality of other people, guess what? We start a relationship with the other person rather than our ideas about the other person. Now, look, I'll tell you, this takes a great deal of courage because you may well be thinking, boy, if I ask this, they're going to think I'm stupid. This is going to sound weird if I ask it. I'll tell you what, all of those things are negative predictions. It's up to you to deal with your negative predictions on your own. That's an inside job. The mind reads, that's where you can engage in a genuine conversation with the other person. So do what you got to do to reality test your negative predictions about asking the other person this question, and then ask them a yes or no question. State the thought. Hey, this thought occurred to me. Is that true? The thought occurred to me that you think I'm stupid. Is that true? And 99 times out of 100, they're going to say, no, that's not true. Now, maybe painfully, they do confirm your worst fears. Again, I'll tell you, as painful as that may be, it is such a relief. Maybe someone is gonna watch this video and they're gonna comment and say, "Yeah, Chandler, I really do think you're stupid, actually, because of X, Y, and Z." I, okay, it wouldn't feel good, but hey, I would have an accurate view of reality, and that would let me take steps to address the problem. So maybe you're walking on eggshells and you're nervous around your family because you think they think you're arrogant. You could then ask them, hey, cousin so and so, this may sound weird. You preface it that way. This may sound really weird. This may be totally strange. You may think I'm nuts, but I've got this thought that you think I'm arrogant. Is that true? And they're going to say yes or they're going to say no. Now, a couple of things are available to you based on what they respond. First and foremost, you could check in. How is it for you to have that hypothesis of yours either confirmed or refuted? What's it like? What happens in you when they say yes or they say no? The follow-up to that is, do you believe them? And boy, oh boy, many of us struggle with the fact that we're engaged in relationships with people that we don't really believe. We don't trust what they say to us. We may want to. They may have given us no reason not to, and yet, ugh, I have a hard time believing that you don't think I'm dumb. I have a hard time believing that you don't think I'm arrogant, whatever the case is. So that's anxiety-provoking thoughts. Still with me so far? We're doing okay? Yeah. So you want to check those out because that's going to account for like 80% of your nervous feeling going on and having to tiptoe around the family. Uh, then we're going to get to this question of sensations or feelings that maybe you'd rather not have. Um, families are, well, there are many things. Let's say that by virtue of the fact that they're part of life, they're frustrating at times. Life is frustrating at times. What I often find when people are doing this eggshell kind of dance, they're tiptoeing around, they're having a very difficult time tolerating one of three primary emotional experiences. It could be that they're having a difficult time tolerating frustration. And frustration is just the experience when there is something between you and an impulse to act. There's something that a part of you wants to do, and yet there's a barrier. That's frustration. It has the characteristic felt sense of a buzzing readiness. There's an activation through you. It's actually quite a pleasant experience. We get it confused with things like irritability, anger, murderous rage, all of this. But frustration in and of itself, it's actually quite pleasant. It's like we charge up in a way. It's like, boy, there's something that I want to say, and I can't quite say it yet. And so I'm building up, I'm building up, I'm building up. It's activating in a way that for many people is difficult to tolerate. But it's separate from something like anger, which has, let's say, anger bordering on hostility. Because when our frustration builds up enough, it gets to be irritating. And it's like, okay, I can't contain this anymore. And it's getting to be like, it's got to get out of me somehow. Irritability is characterized by a retaliatory impulse. Something builds and a build and a build and a build until I just want to like slap the thing. Go figure. The retaliatory impulse is violent. And we direct that violence one of two ways. We either direct it out there in a kind of sadistic, punitive way, or we direct it in here in a kind of masochistic, depressive way. Um, it's either F you or it's F me, so to speak. So that may be difficult for you to tolerate. That may be a feeling that you'd rather not have. And the good news is, if there's ever an emotion you're feeling that you'd rather not feel, you can trade it in anytime you'd like for anxiety. Sigmund Freud said that anxiety is the universal currency of affect, which means you can take any feeling you want. And anytime you don't want to feel it, good news, you can get rid of it. You just trade it in for a bit of anxiety at a great exchange rate. Just a little bit of feeling that you don't want to feel. Take that in, you get a whole bucket of anxiety in return. So I mentioned that frustration or irritability is kind of like the one of the three that people have a tough time with. The other that is quite common is grief. Um, Families, we lose people all the time, uh, and it's painful. Grief is very painful, and many of us we didn't have a familial environment. Maybe our entire lineage didn't have an environment wherein grief could be accommodated and tolerated. And so if that's the case, if we feel sad, we may just like repress that sadness and put on a smiling face and avoid talking about the fact that there's an empty seat at the table. Maybe the pain of that empty seat at the table really is too much for us to bear. So we won't talk about it really. Or we'll give it like a token acknowledgement, but we as a family, we won't really bear the grief of there being one less person here. That's quite common. That can lead to this tiptoeing around, this kind of ambiguous, vague communication, talking around the absence. Yeah. So let's say there's frustration bordering on irritability, rage. There is grief that it can be difficult to tolerate. And I'll tell you the other thing that is very difficult for people to tolerate, surprisingly, that would be genuine loving feelings for their family members. Maybe you feel such an upwelling of positivity, and yet you worry, maybe based on past experience, whatever, you worry that you're going to be told you're too sappy, you're too ooey gooey. Oh, there he goes again, spilling his heart out, whatever the case is. Uh, those, for the record, would be negative predictions. But maybe you feel such a warmth and an affection and a love for the people around you that you don't know what to do with it. And so there too, if you don't know how to express it skillfully, it's just going to get bound up and pushed down. There too, you will experience a great deal of anxiety. And so you'll engage in this vague kind of speech. Good to see you again. Hey, yeah, sport, how you doing? The kind of like social noise people make without saying something more genuine, more authentic to your experience. Like, thank God, it is so good to see you again. Man, I'm moved to tears when I think about just how much I've missed you, and I'm so glad to be with you again. And go figure, a lot of us are not accustomed to expressing ourselves in so forthright a manner. So these, I'd suggest to you, are some of the primary things that can account for the walking on eggshells experience. We've got anxiety-provoking thoughts, negative predictions or mind reads. We've got the normal nervousness that we all feel at the edge of the unknown. And then we've got these sensations, these feelings that maybe we'd rather not have. They're hard for us to tolerate. Uh, I don't know that I have time in this video to go into the full gamut of how you regulate your emotional experience. This is something I go deep into with clients. I'll record more on it in the future, but for the time being, I'll suggest that your primary steps to this are first and foremost, send your attention downward and notice where there is a supporting surface underneath of you. As difficult as it may be for you to contain these feelings, know that the earth itself, the ground beneath you, this can contain it in part. You are not alone in feeling this, whatever this is. So you send your attention downward, and that's going to help you center yourself in the midst of whatever it is you're feeling. So then the question is, can you let yourself fill up with the feeling? And what that means is you're going to be on the lookout for places where you tense yourself. That ground support is going to help with some of that, just based on a physiological response that I don't want to get into right now. But the ground support is going to help with some of the tension. Another thing you might do if you find that there is tension in the body, which I'll just say, tension is a straitjacket over emotional experience. It constricts a feeling that you don't yet know how to contain and regulate. Containment and constriction are not the same thing. So you find your ground support. You see if you can let yourself fill up with the feeling. And maybe you notice, boy, there's just tension around my diaphragm. There's something going on right here. It feels held or in my chest. You could work with the visualization that with each breath in, you are pushing that tension out away from you a little bit. And with each breath out, you're creating a little space between you and the tension. So you breathe in and you imagine sending the tension a little further away from you. You breathe out, and there's that space between you and the tension. So then the question is, what fills that space when you let yourself fill up with whatever this feeling is? Frustration, grief, love, excitement, rage, whatever. What are you aware of in yourself? And we're looking for what the sensory experience here is. This is one of the primary ways that we can begin to develop our capacity to regulate our emotions is by connecting with our internal awareness. So, do you notice changes in your breathing? Does it speed up? Does it slow down? Does it get deeper or more shallow? Do you notice changes in your blood pressure? Do you notice changes in your body temperature? Do you notice something like a movement of energy through you? I'll say that each of our primary emotional experiences, they have a characteristic embodiment that is, it, it's pretty nearly universal. There's cultural variation to some extent, but it's pretty nearly universal. Anger, it's this heat, warmth moving up and out. It's activating the arms. Yeah. Zoof, zoof, and uh, anger. Sadness. It's heavy. It's down. It's in. Yeah. Excitement. It's a little bit up. It's a little bit out the way anger is, but it's more positively valenced than negatively valenced. It's got like a more positive feel, perhaps, than anger does. Um, what else do we have? Well, I mentioned frustration. It's kind of like a buzzy, fizzy, it's like an adrenergic surge. It's like I'm charging up. Um, what else? What else? Well, love, appreciation. It's kind of warm, ooey gooey, spilling out, pouring into, just wanting to merge in that way. So these characteristic emotional experiences will have a felt sense. And if you want to, in the future, reduce the likelihood that you're tiptoeing around and walking on eggshells, you're going to want to get better at regulating your emotional experience. And again, in part, you want to find some support for containment of this experience. You want to let yourself fill up with the feeling. And then, if you're on your own, you could start to imagine what is the impulse of this feeling? What does this feeling want here? And again, there's going to be characteristic imagery. There's a way that every feeling invites a particular ethic. There's a code of conduct that each feeling asks for that is distinct from the other feelings. So, anyway, if you engage in a practice like that, centering in the feeling, letting yourself fill up with it, and then imagining where the feeling goes, that's going to help you develop the means to regulate your emotional experience much more skillfully, which means next time you feel that thing, you're going to be much less likely to experience anxiety. No more alarm bells going off when that feeling comes in. So, this makes being around other people so much easier. So much more enjoyable, frankly, as well. It makes genuine human relationships available because, go figure, if you can't relate to yourself, you can't relate with other people either. Now, I will say this because this comes up with clients quite often. You may find that as you connect to a more genuine relationship with yourself, you discover painfully that other people may not be interested in forming genuine relationships with you. Um, that's information for you. Now, at that point, you have a choice. You could kind of accept that there is a limit to intimacy in that relationship. And you may then have to deal with the pain of that on your own. Um, you could continue inviting them into a more genuine relationship, a more authentic relationship with you, where your heads and your hearts, you're all there together, undefended with them. Or you may decide, boy, I've been investing a lot of myself in relationships uh, well, where the other person doesn't want to invest in a genuine, authentic relationship with me. Hmm, maybe I would be better off investing myself elsewhere. Now, I know that gets a bit far afield from family because, well, as much as we have the chosen family kind of idea, blood is blood. You know? So you may find that family members have a tough time with this, but I will say, um, my own experience and experience with clients has led me to believe that when we connect with our own internal experience more clearly, more deliberately, it makes available options for healing and connection in the family that we wouldn't have perceived otherwise. When we handle our own biz, so to speak, in terms of our feelings, our emotional experience, we start to notice opportunities for connection that would have escaped us before. And go figure, there's nothing that signals safety to engage more than someone who is safe to engage with their own emotional experience. So if you develop a sense of security within yourself, that is, it is so inviting for other people to let their guard down as well. Uh, it takes courage to go first, and it's not without risk of a painful miss, but boy, going first can work wonders in a familial environment. So, is there more to say? Is there more to say? Think, Chandler, think. I don't think so. Uh, this walking on eggshells phenomenon, it's anxiety through and through. So you want to keep a lookout for anxiety in the system. You'll have a sense of it if you hear noisy communication characterized by vagueness or ambiguity, redundancy, and contradiction. When you hear that, either with somebody else or with yourself, you could take a moment to reflect. Huh, someone, somewhere, is anxious. Is it me? Am I the anxious one? Because maybe you are. Now, if you are, you've got these three diagnostic questions. Am I thinking something that is making me nervous? Am I feeling or sensing something that I'd rather not? Or am I at the edge of the unknown? You can deal with those first two quite readily. Walked you through them, well, reasonably in depth here in this video. The encounter with the unknown, I don't know what to tell you other than that's the adventure of life. When you find yourself at the edge of the unknown, I would encourage you to lean into faith and optimism. What do you want to become of this uncertain situation? What do you have faith is possible for us in this group, in this uncertain situation? And then act accordingly. Act in accordance with what you desire for yourself and others in the midst of this uncertainty. Uh, boy, I I know that these ideas are so serviceable. They can be put to such good use for you and for your loved ones. Uh, I believe that when you do so for yourself and for your loved ones, this will ripple out in your community as well. I see it happening here in Buenos Aires, where I'm based currently. It's very exciting, the kinds of changes that I'm noticing in these little community attachments here. I've seen it work wonders in my own family. I've seen it work wonders with clients as well. So I hope this is a blessing for you and yours. I wish you nothing but the best as you go about implementing these ideas, because we all know that ideas without according implementation, it adds to confusion. So please pick one thing from this video that you will put into practice. put it into practice, and reflect. What kind of difference did that make? If you have thoughts, questions, anything you'd like to share, please do feel free to put that in the comments. I'm happy to keep up the conversation there. And that's all I got for now. So be well, and I will speak with you again soon.